All right, good morning, guys.
Alright, good morning guys.
Oh shit, there's loop here. Yeah, GSX. I got shaken out of GSX first on my initial position. If you remember, I shorted it here, right? And it started cracking. I added here. It broke down below VWAP, and then it had this big push. I got stopped out here, like 138 area. And then it just faded back below VWAP. I started adding back. I added back here. And then it just absolutely tanked. So I went from down 100K to up 400K on it. And I still have, let's see, I still have 7,000 shares left, which is about a third of my position. I think this thing could fade back to sub 90 over the coming week or so. Hopefully we get bounce back to like 115 or something, 120 first, multi-day bounce, and then get another leg down. It may not happen, but that's what that's what I'm betting on. Yeah. And Overstock is another. This is one of my main watches for this week. I think Overstock will eventually do what GSX did. It's gonna have a 30% down day. And eventually it's gonna pull back to rising 10, rising 20 day moving averages. Just don't know yet when. The question is, how high is it gonna go first? Is it gonna go to 120? Is it gonna go to 150? I have a starter position from Friday, from about, let's see, 105.40 average, 14,000 shares. But I'll double triple that position once it starts confirming on the downside. Right now it's still strong, so I'm not really excited about it yet, hence my starter position. Tesla, I held some short overnight. Now I want to see if these 10 and 20 EMAs on the 60-minute chart are starting to act as resistance areas. Like, is this thing gonna break lower, or is it gonna reclaim the range? Like, if it reclaims this 1480 area, I'll just cover. Like, again, I think this is gonna make a $500 move in a few weeks. Either way it breaks. If it breaks below this low 1400 area, or if it breaks above this low 1500 area, there's gonna be a $500 move coming. And I wanna be there with size. But it needs to confirm those ranges. It tried to break down on Friday. It really couldn't. Closed a bit too strong. So I covered some, break even. Or actually for a small profit. UAVS. Oh. Is UAVS gonna break out? When was the breakout? The breakout was on Friday. Look at this. Perfect setup. Big move. Pulls back, goes sideways. Bounces off the 20-day. Reclaims the range, goes sideways a little bit, and then it has this big green candle of the rising 20-day. The breakout was on Friday. That was the setup. All right, so let's see, what are my watches here? So INO is now below the 50-day again. It would be a very bullish sign if it reclaims the 50-day. If it opens below the 50-day, reclaims and closes like in the 20s or something. That would be a great long setup for later this week. Just on the range here. Let's see if they can defend the 50-day area. Like, the 50-day has been acting as a support for most of this year. Snap. A 3-star setup. I don't I don't think it's I don't think it's that good of a setup. I think there are stronger ones. Focus on the ones that are right, bouncing off the 10 and 20 days. This one is like below the all of the moving averages, below the 10, below the 20, and below the 50. I don't think it's a setup here. I see what you're seeing. Like, it had a big move, pulled back. Now it's building higher lows. It has a range here. Like, I see what you see, but I think it's a little bit of a broken setup. I think there are better ones. I think there are stronger ones out there. ALT, yeah, ALT, yeah, this is a good setup. I think if it can go have an inside day today, like it had a pretty wide day on Friday, if it can go sideways today, build some higher lows, then this thing would be a 5-star setup for tomorrow. This is a high tide flag. Big move. This is a momentum leader. ADR is 15%. That's extremely high. Not a lot of stocks have ADRs that are that high. Usually when ADR is this high, the stock has made a big move, which this thing has. Like, it's a bit too thin for me to trade. I'm not gonna watch it today, but tomorrow, like if it starts breaking that low 28, low mid 28 range, I'm gonna watch it. Today I'm gonna ignore it because it's just not good enough for me. It's just too thin for me. Thin stocks, if I'm gonna trade a thin stock, it needs to be really good setup. Wow, MCRB had some phase 3 data, up 350% pre-market. TRVN had some data. A lot of biotech related gappers. Melee, unfortunately I'm not in it anymore. I bought it on earnings on this day here, and then I used the 20-day moving average as my trailing stop. I got stopped out, I think, on this day here, when it was obvious it was gonna close below the 20-day. And yeah, what can I say? It's up 30% since. And it reported great earnings. I mean, just incredible earnings. This is like the Amazon of South America. Without the cloud thingy. But they have payments, they have e-commerce. Like, this is the dominant e-commerce payments platform in South America. Just incredible earnings. But it's, you know, it's not a good setup here. It's very extended. It needs to go pull back, go sideways for, you know, at least a few weeks, at least. But it is a large cap momentum leader. But again, it's not a good setup here. The earnings are great, and I'm gonna watch it very closely over the coming weeks and months. Acre, a good setup. Acre was a decent setup here, like 3 days ago or whatever. Or, you know, it did close weak, but it was a pretty decent setup here. It made a big move, went sideways, started surfing these moving averages. You can see it started building higher lows. It was a decent setup here. And now it just you know, it's had some follow through. VIR, yeah, VIR looks great. I'm long this thing, but I just don't see a great setup here right now. There was a setup here. This was a potential setup, but right now there's no setup here. DG a buy? Absolutely not. Why are you even looking at this thing? ADR 1.7%. You're never gonna make any money trading stocks like these. It's a shit setup. It's a shit stock. Focus on the high ADR stocks. Kirk too thin? There's no setup here. I mean, it's not too thin. If you have a tiny account, This is not a theme stock. It has high ADR. It's a momentum leader. So it fits those criteria. But where's the setup? Like, it had a setup here. There was a okay setup, like on this day here. Then it had a potential setup down here. But now it's just in limbo. You know, they need to, like, the setups, you need to buy them when they are bouncing or surfing the 10, 20 or 50-day moving averages. Right now, look at this thing. It's not near any of these moving averages. Arnet. Arnet, yeah, it needs to set up. Maybe in a couple of days. Needs to build a range here. TTOO. Yeah, it looks decent. This one looks decent. Like, it made a big move, right? It keeps surfing the 20-day. It's been going sideways for about a month, 2 months or so. Building higher lows, surfing the 20-day. This is a good setup. If it starts breaking, and it's the hottest sector. It's a COVID-19 sector. High ADR, 9.3%. This could be a good one. This is a stock that could very easily go up 50%. You know, if it's 50, 100%, if it starts breaking out on volume. This is something you need to watch, absolutely. Like, if it starts breaking the high 170 area, low 180 area on like big volume, that's something to watch, absolutely. Let's see, Fiverr is having a gap up, SRNE gapping up. So let's see, most things are looking good. Wait, Livongo? Oh yeah, I'm short Livongo. Yeah, that's why I'm in here. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, my portfolio looks pretty good overall. My longs are gapping up and my shorts are gapping up. TT average true range? No, you are confusing average true range with AD with the average daily range. No. ADR 9.3%. That's very good. Average true range is 15 cents because it's a low price stock. Okay, let's see. Markets are open. Let's make some money. And you can only make money if you focus on good setups. Oh my god, there's so many alerts triggering out of the gate. Jesus Christ. 22 alerts out of the gate. Oil stocks are very strong today. And airlines and cruise lines. Looks like those are the leading sectors today. For now. Overstock, I added another 14,000 shares, opening range lows. Those of you who haven't made a few millions yet, do not get too short. Those of you are interested in this method. I'm potentially looking to rebuy Mara and Riot. Mara digested the offering great, and both of them look like they want to go higher. Fastly so far, it's bouncing nicely off the 50-day. It had a big move on high volume, had a nice pullback, and that's just a normal move for a stock that's up, 500%, 900% in 4 months, having a 35% move lower in a few days. That's just normal. So far, it's building higher lows, and maybe later this week we could have a setup. As soon as later this week. No, I have not closed Tesla short. If you see it in this list here, it means I'm in it. And since you see Tesla in this list, it means I'm still in it. Oh wow, Livongo, this thing is now really selling. Gotta cover some more shares. This is what's gonna happen to GSX2. It's gonna lose its 20-day soon. Same thing with Overstock. It's gonna lose the 20-day. Or at least bounce off of it. I'm in a pretty decent position on Tesla. I have, let's see, 4,000 shares. Because now it looks like these moving averages are, for now at least, acting as a resistance. Like that's great with Tesla. You can do like partial sizes and use like tight stop on all of the sizes. And once it starts moving, just add. So I'm using, I added opening range lows a little bit, and I'm just using a very tight stop on those shares. It's still kind of range bound. It just doesn't want to pick a direction yet. Merely for now selling off on earnings, but it's still holding the rising 10-day. I think in a couple of weeks we're gonna have a nice setup on this thing, hopefully. Workhorse. I saw it gap down in pre-market, so I took it off my watch list. I got stopped out of my last shares on Friday late day. It had this washout, took out Thursday's lows, looked like it was gonna lose the 20-day, and so it closed weak. And then I saw a big gap down in pre-market. Like I still had it on my watch list in case it would re-break this low mid 17 area, but it looks like it wants to break down. Honestly, it looks like the next move is gonna be the 50-day moving average. It's 25% lower. It looks like it's gonna... I'm not gonna short it, but it's just what it looks like to me. SRNE, I'm selling a couple of dozen shares up here. This thing is just what a home run trade. It's now a double, almost a double from where I bought it like last week or 2 weeks ago. Overstock, this could be a big one. I really think like Overstock, if this thing starts selling, it's gonna go to like $70 in a few days. It's gonna go down to $70 in a few days. I really believe that. GSX, I want this thing to build a range here in the low hundreds. And maybe like tomorrow, hopefully we get a next leg lower in tomorrow or next few days. I'm looking to add to this thing. I covered 2/3 of my shares on Friday in the low hundreds, mostly. It stopped you out? Well, it stopped me out too, but I re-shorted it. Well, let's see, where did I short it on Friday? Here. I started shorting it here, right? Somewhere here. And then I added it as it started doing lower highs and lost VWAP. And then it has had this, two big green candles, and here I stopped out like at 138. Took $100,000 loss, and then it just slammed back below VWAP again. And then I added back. I had to re-short. I shorted a bit lower than my initial shorts, and then it just went straight down. My thoughts on UAVS, like if you bought it on Friday, like it wasn't a 5-star setup, it was maybe a 3-star setup, like just follow the sell rules. Use Friday's lows as your stop. Nikola, yeah, Nikola is bounced off the rising 100-day. Now it's, there's nothing there now. Penn, not yet, not $1 million, $500,000 trade so far on GSX. But if I get to add to this thing, oh shit, now it's going lower, and this thing goes like 80, it's gonna be close to $1 million trade. Overstock is also gonna be, if this thing goes down to $60, like I think it will over the next few weeks, it's gonna be $1 million trade. I'm short 28,000 shares of Overstock. Carvana? What about Carvana? Guys, just put tickers out there without, anything. Like, what am I looking at here? Okay, Carvana, yeah, but short? Not here. The short was on Friday. There's nothing here now. There's no edge on it right now. Can it go down to 150? Yeah, but your edge is gone. Square long? No. Where's the setup on Square? It needs to be on the 10, 20 or 50-day moving average. I don't see it being on the 10, 20 or 50-day moving average. Peloton long soon? Yeah, maybe. I'm in it. I bought it on this day here. This was a good setup. But now, maybe later this week. Eric? Come on, guys. ADR of 2%. Come on. PDD. It had a good setup on this day here. Now it probably needs to go sideways for a week or so. SHL short? No. If anything, this could be a good long setup if it takes out highs for the day. It's been kind of surfing above the 50-day, building higher lows for a couple of weeks, and it has a little bit of a range here. It's a high momentum stock. If I would definitely not short it, but if anything, it could be a good long setup if it takes out highs for the day later. PBI short setup? No, not really. Fold. No, it's too choppy. It needs to be a cleaner setup. It's kind of sluggish. It's a very sluggish stock. AM. AutoNation, look, it's a good setup. Like, this is a good setup. The only problem is ADR is 3.8%. Most of you should focus on stocks with ADR over 4, 5, 6%. But it's a good setup. Don't get me wrong. It's a good setup. But for most of you, it's a little bit too slow of a stock. Blink. Well, a few days. It needs a few days. But yeah, it's setting up nicely. It is. Evoc. Maybe. Maybe. It's a bit sluggish. Maybe later this week. Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Yeah, the airlines are all going. I'm thinking about doing one of them potentially. I don't know which one. Save. They're just coming out of these big ranges. I'm not gonna go crazy on them, but it looks like, and cruise lines too. CCL is going. UAL looks really good. These are like alternative setups. This is not really the method I'm trying to teach you. It's an alternative. It's a variation. BA is going. Tesla is now starting to really fade here. I see like a lot, like these beaten down sectors, airlines, cruise lines, some of these property REITs and casinos are having decent days, sorry. But the QQQ names, like Nasdaq names, are starting to weaken. So I don't know. Like oil stuff are strong too. But the internet and software and tech related names are weakening. And also a lot of the COVID names are kind of weakening. We'll see. So I'm not really excited in buying these cruise lines, airline setups. Not really that excited about them. Yeah, it's rotation, absolutely, absolutely. Just a classic rotation day. LRN. No, there's no secondary setup here. Maybe in a week or so. Right now, there's no need to look at it. If you missed it on, what is it, Thursday, you know, have to look for new ones. Covered a tiny bit of GSX here in the 98 area. Just a tiny bit. Kirk, no, not nice. You know what? Let's do a fast swing trading school here. So as you know, I recommend you do 3 scans: a 1 month gainer scan, 3 month gainer scan, and a 6 month gainer scan. Let's just do a 6 month gainer scan. Like, most of you have smaller accounts, so what I'm gonna do is, like, let's see, if I just do this scan right now, I get 13 stocks. Like, these are all mostly large cap stocks, not all of them, and they're very liquid. These are some of the most liquid stocks. But the ADR criteria is only 3.5%. But if I decrease the volume, let's do $10 million. Oh, sorry, wait, I'm gonna cancel it. Let's do $20 million in dollar volume. So I'll change it from 80 million to 20 million. How many scan results do I get? 23. Okay, 23. So let's increase the ADR to 5%. Now it's early in the day, like after it closed, there's probably gonna be, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 results in this. You know what? Let's do it like this. Let's decrease it to 10 million. Just so we can get and increase this to 6%. 27. You know what? I'll decrease it. I'll decrease it to 5 million. Just so we can get a few more results. I want like 50 results or something. Okay, 47. So these are the biggest gainers over the past 6 months. So what we're gonna do, this mRNA is kind of breaking down. It's a COVID-19 leading stock. INO is another one. Trying to break down. All right, let's not focus on that. So let's just start in alphabetical order. ACMR. So this is one of the biggest gainers for the past 6 months. Just like, let's look at setups, okay? Like, this was a it's not really that good of a setup. Like, it worked in hindsight, but I don't know if it was, like, it wasn't. If it had gone sideways a few more days, that would have been a good setup. But this was a hard to identify setup. Let's look at more setups. It did have a decent, like, this was a good setup right here on this day here. It had made a big move, pulled back, went sideways, started building higher lows, and then it had a breakout here. But this breakout didn't have much follow through. You would have sold, after 3 to 5 days, you sell a third to half of your shares, and then you move your stop to break even, and then use the 10-day moving average as your trading stop. So this would have been a small gainer probably, but it didn't really have much follow through. It didn't really have that many good setups. Like, this has been a little bit of a choppy one. Yeah, so there are no good setups. Like, on some stocks you don't get good setups. They just kind of choppy and they go higher anyways. Like, this is like a 5.5 star setup on a 5-star scale. Okay, this is such a good one. Such a good one. Memorize this setup. Makes a big move, goes sideways, search the 20-day, and then it kind of loses the 20-day here, but it's still building higher lows, and then you have this tight range that breaks and a high volume breakout. ARCT, another one. I know I've been long this thing this year, but I don't remember when. This is another one. It's kind of tricky. There's kind of no setups on it. Not the type of setups we are looking for. Potentially this would have been a setup. Okay, this would have been a setup. Okay, this would have been a setup. It makes a big move, surfs the 10-day, builds higher lows, takes out this range, and it has a narrow candle before the breakout day, and then breaks out on high volume. It closes kind of weak, but it does have some follow through. But it wouldn't have been a big winner. Blink. This could have been a potential setup. Not really that good, but yeah. But it is setting up. In maybe 2-3 days, if we can go sideways a bit more, let the 10-day catch up, there could be a setup on this one. Car. This is another one. There's really no good setups on this thing. Okay, there's a potential setup here. So what this thing does is makes a big move, pulls back, and it kind of goes sideways for a couple of months. And as you've been you know what? Let's look at this thing on the swing trading school setup, because there's only 3 moving averages. These are the only indicators you should be using. So this is what it does is it kind of starts building higher lows. It gets tights in a range, and it bounces. This is the first bounce of the 50-day moving average. It undercuts it, builds a range, tight range, and then it has a breakout day. So this is a potential setup. Like, anytime you have a clean bounce of one of these 3 moving averages, that's a nice thing. Car. Let's do CBay. Another one. Not really any setups here. This thing just moves in gaps. CDE. No, I don't see any good setups on this one. Cell H. This one has a couple of good setups. Like, one is right here on this day here. Makes a big move, surfs on the 10 and 20-day moving averages, starts building higher lows of the 20, takes out this tight range. This is a nice little high tight flag. And then there is a potential setup here. Like, this is a 5-star setup. This would be maybe a 3-star setup. I would have preferred a few more days of sideways. But it keeps building these higher lows, has 2 tight candles, and then it has a breakout day here. And then there's actually a good setup here. This is like, I would recommend everyone put earnings somewhere on their charts. Next earnings, you do edit toolbar, right click, edit toolbar, and then you click the plus icon, and then you look at next earnings and you add it. And I would recommend you never buy stocks, like, let's say within 3 days of earnings or within a couple of days of earnings. Like, This is a very good looking setup. This is like a 4.5 star setup. Look at how cleanly it bounces off the 20-day, and then it has this tight range here. Just keeps building higher lows. This is a very good setup, but it's a day before earnings, so you shouldn't have bought it. But it's a good setup, right? If it hadn't reported earnings this day, you should have bought it. CLSK, another one. It kinda. This is a maybe setup. Makes a big move. Pulls back, goes sideways, starts building higher lows of the 10-day and has a range here, and then it has a breakout. So that's, it's actually a pretty decent setup. I would have preferred if this day had been a tight range day instead of a wide range day. But it was a decent setup. Codex. Now this one has several perfect setups. Several of them I've traded, like this down here. This is a 6-star setup of a 5-star. Oh goddamn, TC2000 is sometimes really annoying. This is a really good setup. Makes a big move. It is kind of choppy in this range, but it gets tighter and tighter. Builds higher lows. Goes from surfing the 10-day moving average to surfing the 20. Builds higher lows. Has this range that gets tighter and tighter. Has a really narrow range day the day before breakout, and then it breaks out on high volume. That's that's such a perfect setup. Then it has another good one here. It's a little like it has this one I traded too. I would have preferred if this was a tight range day, but sometimes it's like a high tight flag. Makes a big move. Bounces off the 50-day. Look at how it surfs the 50-day. Then it starts surfing the 10 and 20-day. Builds higher lows, has this clean range. It's a variation. So there are like different variations of the setup I'm trying to teach you. This is another one. I traded this one. Unfortunately, I didn't follow my own sell rules. I got stopped out on this day here. Even though I shouldn't have. I anticipated that it would go lower, so I sold it a bit too early. But I rebought it on this day, on stream. This is the day when I chased the chase. Those of you who were in the chat that day, you remember. And yeah, I'm still in it. And now I'm pretty much waiting for this thing to close below the 10-day moving average to sell the rest. I still have like a third of my shares or a quarter of my shares or something like that. I sold most of them into strength. It made a big move, 50% in a couple of weeks. Carvana, let's see. I need to get back to my own trading. RCL, yeah, cruise lines and airlines they just keep going higher. Carvana had several, or at least 2 really good setups. One was here. Again, big move. Surfs the 20 days, starts getting tighter and tighter, builds a range, higher lows, gets 3 tight range candles, and then a breakout. And look at this thing. This makes a huge move, to 300% move, and then it breaks out. You want to be in the fastest moving stocks. Okay. Someone mentioned Ericsson. Okay. This is shit. Okay. This is shit. If this was a high ADR stock, that would have been a good setup, but it doesn't matter how nice it looks. If it's a low ADR stock, it's shit. You shouldn't be trading this thing. You should never trade shit. Low ADR is equal to shit. High ADR is equal to gold. And here's another good setup. It's just the same theme, like a big move, pullback or sideways consolidation, and then the stock starts finding support and starts surfing one of the moving averages. It could be the 10-day, could be the 20-day, could be the 50-day, and many times it's a combination of 2 of them, like usually the 10 and 20. And then it gets tighter, and then it breaks out of that range. It's just the same theme over and over. This is how stocks move, okay? This is how stocks have moved over the past 100 years. Okay, you can go back and look at charts from the 20s, from the 50s, from the 80s, from the 90s. This is how stocks move, okay? You do the same thing over and over again. You just need to memorize these patterns. CWH, this one had I guess an okay setup here. I would have preferred maybe a bit more sideways. It wasn't really that obvious of a setup, but it surfed the 20-day nicely. It had a nice, started building a range here. But yeah, I would have preferred a bit more sideways. So it wasn't that clean. It was a Caesar. Here I see a really good setup back in April. This is a good setup. This thing makes a big move. Okay, it goes up 100. It goes up more than 200%. Pulls back, finds support on the rising 20-day, builds a tight range, and then it has a high volume breakout. This is like a 5-star setup. Memorize this. This is where millions are made, guys. And then you can just use the trailing 10-day moving average. Like, okay, so I know I advocate like sell 1/3 to half after 3 to 5 days, and then move your stop to break even, and then sell the rest once you get the first close below the 10-day. But there are, like, sometimes the stock can close below the 10-day, but you can still keep it. And I'll show you the example of when. Like, this is a good example. So you would have sold 1/3 to half on any of these days here. And then, like on this day, closed above the 10-day. Next day, or actually you would have gotten stopped out of it. Never mind, it wasn't a good example. I'll try to find. Forget what I said. I'll try to find a better example. I don't see any good setups on this thing. XPI, like this one already marked it. Like I've told this one, very good setup. This one too, very good setup. Fastly, 5-star setup right here. Fiverr, you had a great setup here. Or this was like a decent setup. You had a great setup. This is a 5-star setup. And then you had the okay setup here. HL, there was a decent setup on it last week, right here. IBIO is a bit tricky. Like there was a good setup here. Like this stock actually broke out late day. It gapped up and then it went sideways for most of the day. You can see it on the 60-minute chart. This thing didn't take like the 258 was the highest of the day until late day when it broke out on high volume. So 258. Like this was a decent setup. Actually, it was a better setup here. This is a good setup right here. But there was a secondary setup here before it made this big move. IDEX, yeah, there could have been a setup here before it made a big move. INO had some good setups. I know I did trade it on this day here when it took out the highs of the day, late day, but it's a variation of a setup. Here was a really good setup, but it didn't have any follow through. Here was a really good setup. Look at this thing. Makes a big move, pulls back, finds support on the 20-day, builds higher lows and has this tight range, and then it breaks out. 5-star setup. And then here, here was also a setup. The first bounce of the 50-day. Builds some tight candles, and then it has a breakout candle from that range. Again, you need to find a stock that makes a big move, then pulls back and or goes sideways for a while, finds support on either the 10, the 20, or the 50-day moving averages, bounce and starts either building higher lows like here, or has like an undercut and reclaim. like here, and then breaks out of a tight multi-day or multi-week range. Like it's the same setup, a variation of that setup over and over again. Here was a maybe setup. I would have preferred maybe a bit more sideways. Kodak, also upstairs. Livongo had many. I've traded this thing. This thing has been one of my biggest winners this year. Here was a good setup. Here was a good setup. Like here was a good setup, but it would have stopped you out the next day. And that's exactly what happened to me. And here was an okay setup. Wasn't. But here, this was a really good setup, and I traded this one. And then it was also a really good setup right here. Let's see now, things are triggering. What's triggering? SPG, RCL. I'm intrigued by this SPG. Just coming out of a low range. They had some news with Amazon. They have earnings after hours, but I don't think it matters, to be honest. This is another type of trade. You shouldn't, do this trade. It's just a variation of things I do. Uh, 66. Oh shit. I just bought 31,000 shares of this thing. But again, this thing could gap down to $60 after hours. They have earnings. But I'm thinking all of these like bottom stocks are going. Oil, gas names, cruise lines, airlines. Like this is just like sector momentum. And this thing, like on the weekly chart, it looks pretty good. I mean, building higher lows and has this tight range. Again, this is not what I'm trying to teach you. It's just a variation of the same thing. But you should focus on the ones that bounce off the 10, 20, 50. Mara, not really nothing here. Mark had a really good setup right here. Really good setup. MCRB. Oh shit, what a big move. Wow, this thing is up 600% today. Holy shit. MIK. Okay, here it had a pretty decent setup. Or not, I don't know, okay setup, I guess, here. It was a bit sluggish. But, this is an okay setup. Matador. No. NLS had several good setups right here, and right here. These are really good setups. NVAX had a perfect setup right here. And if you would have followed the sell rules, you would have sold a third to half of your shares on one of these days here, and you would still be in the stock. Okay, you would be up 260% on the rest of your position. The other half or 2/3, because it hasn't closed below the 10-day since. And this is why I'd advocate, trailing some of your shares on the 10-day, because sometimes you can catch something like this, and these things are really gonna add to the bottom line in your accounts. You catch a few of these now and then, oh man. These are the ones that are gonna grow your accounts exponentially. OPK, this one, I almost traded. I didn't pull the trigger. It wasn't that clean of a setup. It was a bit choppy, but it was kind of, surfing the 20-day, then it started kind of surfing the 50-day. It built higher lows for several months, and then it started getting tighter, and this is a COVID-19 stock. So when you have a sector momentum, like if it's a leading sector, the setup doesn't have to be like really, really good. It's okay if it's like a 3.5, 4-star setup. It still counts like a 5-star setup, because if everything is running in a sector, there is increased probability of success. So this was a pretty decent setup. If you put it in context that it's the strongest sector in the stock market for the past 3-4 months. Here's another. This is a 5-star setup. This is like a really perfect setup. And now it's going sideways. Like it had a good setup here too a couple of days ago. Looks like, so far it hasn't had much follow through. But in a few days, when the 20-day catches up, it's building higher lows, has a range here. This could be a setup later this week. Overstock, this thing had some really good setups along the way. This is a really good setup, and this is a really good setup. And you would still be in it because it hasn't closed. If you bought it here, you would still be in it because it hasn't closed below the 10-day moving average since. I'm telling you, you catch some, you catch some of these moves. This thing's up 300% from this trigger right here. 300%. You catch these kinds of trades now and then. These are the ones that are gonna grow your accounts. Penn had a really good setup here. Unfortunately, didn't have much follow through. Then it had a good setup here too, but it would have stopped you out. And here it was kind of a decent setup. Like what it did, made a big move, went sideways, bounced off the 50 days, built higher lows off the 50 day, and then it kind of gapped up and took out this big range here. So it's not as obvious of a setup, but there is a setup here. But it may not have been that clean of a setup. And there was like a secondary setup here, but that would have stopped you out because this stay here, it would have stopped you out. Plug, really good setup right here. Like sometimes stocks gap up over their entry, but you can still have a tight stop on it if you do it like opening range highs. If you are ready to buy opening range highs. PRTY, I really don't see any good setups here. PVAC, nah, I don't really see any good setups here. Redfin, maybe, yeah, this one was, yeah, this here could be like an okay setup. Not really that obvious, but. And then here too wasn't like, maybe setup. It just built higher lows, and then it had like 4 tight candles and took out this range. But these are not like perfect setups. RRC, no, it's not really. It's a sluggish one. Run had a decent setup here. I would have preferred a few more days of sideways personally, but you got a clean bounce of the rising 20-day. This is like a big momentum leader. SRNE, well, this one, I traded it here. I traded it here. On this entry here, I unfortunately didn't follow my sell rules. And it wasn't a 5-star setup. It was more of a sluggish name. It had been gone sideways for a bit too long. But here, this is a 5-star setup. I'm still in it like quarter or fifth of my shares. It's a double now from entry. Like this is a perfect looking setup. Higher lows, keeps surfing the 20-day, and then it starts getting really tight and has a breakout day. SVM, nah. Like this was a decent setup, and here was a good setup. TRVN has always been a choppy one. TTO, well, this is actually a pretty decent setup if you were ready to buy it opening range highs. Now there's no entry here, but this is a pretty decent one. Momentum leader, high ADR, surfing the rising 20-day, and had this tight range, and now it's breaking out on high volume. But the entry was like sub 180, definitely sub 185 was the entry. The average true range on this thing is 16 cents. Lows of the day is 172. So your entry was no higher than let's see, 188. No higher than 188 should have been your entry. Because one of my rules is that the stop shouldn't be higher than the average true range. And yes, I put the ATR back on my charts because, you know, I kind of, it's easier, you know, just look at the ATR versus the ADR if you want to, when you're going to put your stops. UAVS had a maybe entry on Friday. VSLR, this is exactly at Run. They, like I think Run bought VSLR, so they trade exactly the same. VXRT, it's potentially starting to build a setup here. Building higher lows, it's starting to build a tight range. It's not an obvious setup here, but maybe in a few days. It's a very high average ADR stock, 14.2%. Workhorse. I'm stalking this thing. It's still building higher lows and has a range here. I was on it, on this thing on this day here twice. I got stopped out twice. I lost 200k on it. Then I rebought it on this day here, and now I kinda sold it for a small loss on Friday. And today it's just fighting on the, you know, it's trying to put in another higher low potentially. If it can build like close, like in the high 16s, that would be a really good sign for tomorrow. But it could as easy, you know, easily break down and go back to the 50-day too. But if it, you know, can close strong, that would be a good sign for tomorrow. WTRH, I really don't see any good setups in this thing. Maybe here, you know, maybe it kind of lost the momentum, like it went sideways for a long time, and you know, but it did break out of this long range on volume, so it could have been a maybe setup. And PRTS, this one we looked at on stream the day it broke out. Someone mentioned it several days before. This is like a 7-star setup on a 5-star scale. This is like, you know, big move, goes sideways, builds a tight range, and look at how tight it gets. Look at this thing, it breaks out, and boom. This is like a 7-star setup on a 5-star scale. Memorize this. This is the basic principle we're trying to, like, stocks move like stairs, right? You get a leg higher, sideways, leg higher, sideways. You get another step higher, sideways, step higher, sideways. So we are trying to identify the areas when the next step higher could be formed. You know, tight areas. We're looking for tight areas so we can get a tight stop, so we can get a good risk reward. This is how stocks move. Like, not like this one is kind of a perfect one. Most are not perfect, but this is the basic principle. This is how stocks have moved in 100 years, and there's no reason they shouldn't stop moving like this just because, you know, you're getting started in trading. All right, enough of swing trading school for today. Wow, NVAX. This thing wants to go to like 250. Jesus Christ. What a relentless stock. Unbelievable. Tesla took out Friday's lows. So now it's on kind of backside. This moving out, it came out of this range, broke below this range, and now these moving average, the 10, 20, and 65 EMA are gonna act as resistance areas. So every time it rallies back into these moving averages, it's supposed to sell off. And if it doesn't, if it starts reclaiming, that's when you cover. But this thing could very easily pull back to $1,000 if we start get a decent pullback. I'm short 3,900 shares. Wait, am I? Yeah, 3,900 shares. 4.5. That's $5.5 million position. So that's my biggest position by far. Overstock. Overstock is kinda building lower highs and higher lows. It's building a range on the 60-minute chart. Like, you know, if it breaks out of this range, I'm gonna cover, and if it starts breaking below this range, hopefully we get a few more candles in this range. And if it starts breaking below, I'll add more to my short. I think this thing could easily pull back another 20-30% from here. All right. Oh man, there's so many people who have written stuff in the chat. Sorry guys, I'm just not gonna read the chat. Go back 30 minutes, I'm just not gonna do that. Too many people are writing a lot of stuff. Let's see here. INSG. No. Jumia. My buys and sells. I bought it on this day. Sold a bunch on the way up, and I sold my last shares when it went red on this day here. Just because it got really extended. You know, this thing was like 60% above the 10-day moving average. So I didn't even wanna. I wasn't gonna trail it on the 10-day. You know, that's something I do often. I just, you know, when I feel a stock gets really extended, I'm not even gonna trail it on the moving averages. A lot of that times that's a mistake, and may have been a mistake this time too. AG. Not today. Maybe in a couple of days. No. Yeah, no, INSG is just, you know, there's no momentum here. Where's the momentum? It's not a clean setup. You need to look at the 10, and it's just been in a choppy range. It's not a good setup. NCPHY. What? MPCHY. No, what? MCPH. You know what? Fuck French stocks. Let's keep the American stocks. I can't. Fuck these OTC tickers. Beely, no, not yet. Yeah, Beely's. For now, it's done. Let's see how it acts on the 50-day. Right now, it has the potential to build another higher low off the 50-day, and in this case, if it reclaims the 50-day, we could get a good setup in the next few days. But right now, yeah, we'll see. Actually racist? Actually not racist. TTD. TTD had a 5-star setup here where we bought it, or at least I did. I knew some other people did too. Right now there's nothing here. You don't have to pay extra taxes. It's an OTC stock. It's a French OTC stock. I just got you know, I couldn't get the ticker. I hate OTC tickers. They're like usually like MCPHY, like 5-letter tickers, and they're just weird. You know, I couldn't get the ticker through. JWN, let's see. No. FLGT. What's FLGT? No, not yet. TFFP. Maybe on Friday. Maybe set up on Friday, but ACAM. No. ADR 2.3%. No. Just no. Stick to the stocks that have ADRs of, you know, 5-6% or more. UCTT. Maybe. There's a maybe setup developing. Maybe. I don't care if a company has massive insider buys. Like, I'm not an investor, I'm a trader. I don't care about the insider buys or insider sells. Look at something like mRNA. This thing had massive insider sales since, like, I don't know, March, April. Yet the stock is up, 100, 200% since. Like, for a trader, it doesn't matter. If a stock has momentum, the odds are it's gonna keep going up for. And if a stock that doesn't have momentum has massive insider sales, buys, look, if you like it fundamentally, buy it as an investment, but it's probably not a good trading stock or setup. No, I usually don't consider early entries. Wuba and wins. Nah, if it starts breaking about this 30 area on big volume, yeah, maybe, but yeah. Wuba is a buyout. This is not a setup, it's a buyout. DFS, it's not really that great of a setup. DFS had a really good setup here. This is a 5-star setup. Gonna show you guys. This is a really good setup. Oh man, this is just an incredible setup. Makes a big move. And then it pulls back, finds support on a rising 20-day, reclaims, starts riding it, builds higher lows, and then it has this big tight range. And then it gaps up on volume. Opening range highs on this day. That's the entry. Look at the move. Look at this thing. Boom. Plus 55% in like a couple of weeks. It's a really good setup. I'm just trying to go back a bit in chat. ONTX is building a setup here. Maybe if it breaks out tomorrow or in a few days, that could be good. Nail, yeah, ADR, yeah, absolutely. Like ETFs, the same principle, the same patterns apply. High ADR, high momentum, and it's the same patterns. Like, this is actually a good setup. If you had scanned for these things, like ETFs, you can apply the same scans for ETFs. Yeah, this is a good setup. If you were early in the like high 44s, low 45s, that was the entry. This thing could easily go to 60 plus. RDHL, where's the setup here? Come on, guys. Where's the setup? It's just a random stock that's been up several days in a row. What are we looking at here? Lazy? It's a maybe setup. Like, opening range highs were in like low 14s. It's a maybe setup. It had a very good setup here and here. Like, this is a maybe setup if you were early on it. Now it's not a buy here, but ONTX. There are no earnings on this thing. It's a no revenue biotech. But the earnings, yeah, they report in 2 days. But these no revenue biotechs, sometimes they report data on their earnings. So that could be a risk, but this thing has no earnings. But they could maybe report data, and if it's bad data, it's gonna be down 70% overnight. Yeah, whoa, look at this. Ultra liquid stock. Only the ones who have like tiny accounts should trade this thing. This is a 5-star setup. Who posted this? Wallenstam? You get a gold star. Wallenstam is gonna be a future millionaire. There you go. This is a very good looking setup. This is a really good looking setup. Look how beautifully it's surfing the 20-day, building higher lows, and it's tight range. This is a really good setup. Yeah, but I can't MCPHY. I can't get it. Like, there's no such stock in TC2000. MCPHY. There's no such stock. That's why I got pissed off. That's why I said fuck French stocks. No, that's why I said like only the people with tiny accounts should be trading this thing. Like if you have a really tiny account, let's say less than 15K. Yeah, guys, just mention American stocks or stocks that are on pink sheets. Like let's just focus on stocks most of us actually can trade. And that I can actually get a chart of RPay. No, it's too choppy. It's too choppy. It look at like it was trending nicely. Okay, it was trending nicely, but then it kind of lost the momentum. It's just lost the 50-day. It's like it's not a good setup here. It got sluggish. It should firmly hold above the 10, 20, or the 50-day, but it kind of broke down and now it bounced back and now it's just, there's nothing there. VSLR, there's nothing here today. Here was a decent setup. Let's see, TTD is right on the 10-day. Hopefully it can bounce here. But if it closes below, I may sell. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'm gonna use the 10 or 20. Like, I use both the 10 and 20 as my trailing stops. Sometimes I use the 10, sometimes the 20. Depends on the stock. But you should always use the 10. Just easier. Codex may stop me out today. It looks like it may close below the 10-day. Peloton, my entry is way lower, but if it closes below the 10-day, I'll get out. Oh, LRN. This one reports tomorrow. Question is it pre-market or after hours? After hours tomorrow. Okay. I'm gonna move my stop aggressively on this thing. Because, this thing is gonna report after hours tomorrow, so it could easily gap down to 45 or 40 or something. So I'm probably gonna, unless it closes really strong, like goes to 55 plus tomorrow, I'm gonna sell a lot of shares before the earnings. I don't want to risk a big gap down or something. Wow, SRN, Jesus Christ. Sometimes, sometimes you're gonna catch a beast. Like, these are the trades I live for. It looks like a regular trade. It looks like, maybe it can go to 10, 11 bucks, right? And then it goes, then it doubles, right? And maybe it even triples. These are the trades. Like, I'm addicted to trades like these. Like, it's a great feeling when you catch something like this. It's just an awesome feeling. Those are the trades I live for. I'm gonna do one more scan and I'm gonna cut the stream. I need to eat something. Again, TTO was a decent setup if you caught it opening range highs. What the hell is this? Some random pump stock. Yeah, a lot of these beaten down, like oil, gas names, airlines. These are the sectors that are moving today. Cruise lines. some reads like wait, what's this? All right. CRVS. Nah, not really. Nah, it kind of lost the momentum. Now it's just a sideways. It needs another PR or something to move. HSIC. Nah, yeah, nah, I don't know. Nah, not really. If it can go sideways a few more days. AVNW. You know what? Right now it looks like it's weakening, but if it doesn't weaken, like if it, you know, it's still building higher lows. If it holds these higher lows and starts breaking out the next few days, it could be a good setup. This is actually a pretty good one if it breaks out. You have to wait for it to break out. It's a very low volume stock. Like unless everyone with more than 50k in their accounts should probably not trade this thing. But if you have a tiny account, this could be a good one. AVGR, no, not really. Maybe it can go sideways another 2-3 days, maybe then. What I think of stock tweets, I don't know. I never really used it. I don't care. I don't. It's like Twitter. It's just like stock Twitch is just a bunch of clueless people tweeting about stocks. It's a big waste of time. Focus on setups. If you focus on setups, in a few years you will make more money than the whole of stock tweets combined. LPCM. No, not really. Look, stock tweets, I don't want to say that like they're dumbest of the dumb, but it's just a bunch of clueless people who have, they're just pumping their favorite stocks. They have no idea what they're doing. And then if you're like negative on something, if you mention a stock in any negative way, you're gonna have a horde of crazy maniacs attacking you. It's just a bunch of trolls. Just avoid it. There's no value in stock tweets. I don't think there's any value in it. Okay, guys, I'm gonna cut the stream now. Thanks for joining. I hope you got some value out of the stream. Don't forget to study setups on your own. It's all about looking at big winning stocks and looking at recurring patterns. Okay, maybe you will find patterns that I don't see. Like you find a pattern that I haven't noticed, and if you can build a trading method around it, you're gonna make a lot of money. It's all about exploiting the same patterns same patterns occur over and over again, right? It's all about identifying those patterns. It looks like this Kumu is breaking out. This is a 5-star setup. It really is. Like you can risk like 20 cents on it to make $1, $2. Really good setup. Yeah, I know, but yeah, guys, we went over. Kumu is a very I said it, like if you have a big, like if you have a tiny account, Kumu is, you can trade Kumu. If you have but only if you're like a $10,000-$20,000 account. If you have a bigger account than that, ignore it. It's too liquid. It is very liquid. Only for those with very small accounts. All right, guys. I'm gonna cut the stream now. Happy trading. Don't forget to put in, instead of, trading like crazy maniacs the rest of the day, unless you're a day trader, you shouldn't do it. What you should do is study setups. That's what you should do. Rest of the day should be spent studying setups. Okay, good luck, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining.